Welcome, everybody, to WagerTalk Today, the best daily sports betting show on the planet. We've got unbelievable information coming your way. I'm Lawrence Pressman, and here is your lineup. Ralph Michaels will join us first. He's got a first five bet on the Angels and the Yankees. He's also got a bet for us on Iowa State in college football, their win-loss record, and a chart coming your way, and a really good chart, very timely. It's about the new NFL head coaches and how Ralph sees them doing in preseason. Steve Merril after that. Huge basketball game for the USA team, and a huge basketball game for Serbia as well. Minus 15.5 is the total. 187 is the spread. 187 is the total. Steve Merril is going to take that game apart. And he's going to look at the Tigers and the Mariners. We're going to end the show with Kyle Anthony. There's 2 UFC bets coming your way. Teddy and I are going to continue talking about how to bet NFL preseason and what did bettors learn. And my friend, what is your big game breakdown?
Big game breakdown. We'll talk an NLCS rematch from last year. The Phillies and the Diamondbacks, they're playing in Arizona tonight. We'll break that one down before this show is through as well. So a loaded Thursday edition, Lawrence. Let's get right into it.
Ralph Michaels joining us. Ralph, how are you, man? What's going on? You must be super busy these days getting ready for football.
You know, I am like a kid in a candy store, probably like you guys are too. Yes, it's preseason football, but the week 1 of preseason football, I turned on the Hall of Fame game. I watched the first quarter and listened to what the coaches say and listened to some quotes. But I'll tell you what, guys, you can watch a lot of preseason football, and when you're listening to those local commentators talking about the teams, you can get a lot of great information during the first couple minutes of each game.
Yeah, that's something Teddy and I will be talking about a little later as well. Great point, Ralph. Well, let's turn our attention to some baseball, and we've got a matchup between the Angels and the Yankees. How do you suggest our listeners bet this game?
Well, you know, you look at the line and you see the Yankees a 200-plus favorite. Do they deserve to be a 200-plus favorite? Well, you look at the Yankees and you look at the Angels, and the Yankees are at home, and the Yankees won 8 out of 10. So I understand the line. But there is no team that has a bigger disparity between facing lefties and facing righties. Against right-handed starters, the Yankees are number 1 in slugging percentage. They are hitting .459, a .459 slugging percentage against righties. The LA Angels against righties are number 26, a slugging percentage of .374. But guess what? This game has 2 lefty pitchers. Against lefties, the Angels are number 18 in slugging percentage at .389. The New York Yankees are number 23 in slugging percentage. So we have the better hitting team. Since April the 10th, New York is 9-14 against left-handed starters. And not only are they 9-14, an average line of minus 162. So that's almost minus 40% return on investment. And guess what? Since June the 1st against lefties, the Yankees are 0 for 7. That's right. They've lost 7 straight games at home against a left-handed starter with an average score of 7.6 to 2.9. You look at the Angels against lefties. They're 10-11 on the season. And while they're 1 game under 500 with an average line of plus 129, that puts them on the positive side and a plus 8% ROI. As a dog against lefties, they're actually 9-6, a very good record, 42% ROI. You look at Anderson on the road for the Angels, very few pitchers have pitched as well away from home. Anderson with a 1.83 road ERA, a 172 opponent batting average, and a 0.90 whip on the road. LA has won his 5 starts as a dog. He's been a dog of plus 160, plus 170, plus 132, plus 125, and plus 135. And oh yeah, Cortez for the Yankees, his last 4 starts, he has averaged 4 2/3 innings. He's allowed 14 runs and 27 hits in 18 2/3 innings and 5 home runs. Straight up, the LA Angels, first 5 plus 180 or 190 against the Yankees, cash it and win big.
So Cortez's numbers are actually, if you look at his last 10 starts, the Yankees have won 2 of them. All right. They've been consistently losing for him. Is this a scenario? Because, I mean, look, you could have found plus 230, plus 235 last night. This one jumped out at me. You know, I'm like, I'm like, what? Is this legitimately like a bad line? Like the bookmakers just hung a bad line on this? I'm a little bit shocked by this number, and I want to know what your thoughts on, like, why were the Yankees minus 280? Why are they still now minus 230 in a situation with a starter who's not getting the job done against an opposing team that's playing decent baseball? Is this a number is this a bad number? Is this like the bookmakers, like, what are they thinking here, Ralph?
Teddy, bad is relative terms. You know, that's our job as a handicapper, finding a line that we think should be different. And while we could say it's a bad line, if a bookmaker is posting a line because they know they continue to get money on the Yankees and they're getting even money, it's not a bad line for the books, but it's a bad line that we could take advantage of as handicappers. So that is the difference of where we see a line. Obviously, the lines come down a little bit, so they've taken some angel money. But in my mind, I am not afraid to play into a line move if I still think there's value with that line at the current team. So yes, I could have gotten a better number. I did not handicap baseball last night because I was looking at NFL preseason. But when I woke up this morning, seeing the Angels at plus 180 to 190, first 5, to me, there's still value regardless of what the line was last night. Therefore, it's my best bet for the show.
Ralph Michaels joining us, everyone. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, please take a second and hit that like button. We really need it. It's literally how you move up in the rankings on YouTube. One of the many ways, but the most important way. So please, it takes 1 second, hit that like button, and also subscribe to our channel. We're still a few people shy of 165,000 subscribers. So if you've already subscribed, log into your wife's YouTube account, subscribe for her too. Plus, she gets to see me. It'll help your sex life. Iowa State, over or under 7.5 wins on the season, Ralph?
Well, I like this Iowa State team. And if you start watching any of the Gold Sheet top 25 videos that I did each of the top 27 teams, the top 25 and the power ratings that were matched. Check those out on WagerTalk TV. But Iowa State is the #1 team as far as returning experience goes. Last year, they went 7-6. They played a very difficult schedule, number 25 in the country. So when you look at their efficiency ranks, they were 36 on offense, 34 on defense. That is better than a 7-6 team. They returned 20 starters this year, all 11 on offense and 9 of the 11 on defense. They only lost 1 player in the draft last year, 3 points on my draft system. The previous 2 years, they lost 7 players and 21 points. That's a positive. When we look at their schedule, they're going to be a double-digit favorite in 5 games. They're going to be a home favorite of -6 and -7 in 2 games. So they're going to be a favorite of -6 or more in 7 games, and the over-under is 7.5. So let's look at the other 5 games. They'll be on the road as a pick. They'll be a 1-point dog in 3 games, and they'll be a 6-point dog in 1 game. I really do think they can clearly win this 7.5, top this 7.5 win total. You know, and the one thing I want to mention about Iowa State, last year they had a freshman quarterback in Rocco Becht. We know that's tough for a freshman quarterback to come in. When you look at his September numbers, he averaged only 7.1 yards per attempt. Folks, that is a scared true freshman dinking and dunking and not going deep. October, he averaged 7.3 yards per attempt. The end of the season, from November on, he averaged 10.8 yards per attempt and had a 10-1 ratio the last 4 games. Their toughest 2 games in the Big 12 are the final 2 games of the season. So we're going to have a quarterback that is now a freshman quarterback with a year under his belt, and will have another full season to contend against the top 2 teams, Kansas State and Utah, in the division. I look at the schedule, I look at the coach, I look at the talent on the field, and to me, it is a play where not only do I like the over, on the video I also shared that I'm going to put a sprinkle on Iowa State to win the Big 12 at 10-1. To me, they're the 3rd best team at 10-1. So to win a conference at that price point with a top 3 team has value to it. So that's one situation. And I'm just going to give you one thing that has nothing to do with my bets, guys. But on these videos I've been doing, I've been giving some interesting tidbits. How about this? When a Matt Campbell team is on the road with the line between the 4s, so they're from +4 to pick 'em to -4, they're playing a competitive team or a similarly competitive team. When Matt Campbell's teams are on the road with the line between the 4s, his teams, Teddy and Prez, are 1-19 over-under. That is 95% to the under. That's the type of tidbits you're getting on the Gold Sheet Top 25 videos.
Yeah, that's a strong little angle there. Between the 4s for Matt Campbell, Iowa State. Something to pay attention to. That's why you watch WagerTalk Today each and every weekday, live, noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. here on the left coast. Ralph, I want to ask you conceptually. So we've had multiple handicappers on this week. We had a recommendation for NC State over the total. We had a recommendation for Indiana over the total. We had a recommendation for Oklahoma State over the total. We had a recommendation for what was the other one? The other one from the
Oklahoma State. Did you say?
I'm sorry?
Did you say Oklahoma State?
I did. There was another one. There was another Big Ten. Oh, Utah over.
Yes,
was the other one.
Utah.
Now we're talking Iowa State over. Aren't we supposed to be looking for unders when it comes to season win totals? Lawrence, by the way, they're called season win totals. Aren't they supposed? In general, don't more of these go under than over? Injuries derail teams, etc. Everyone wants to bet teams on to be good and unwanted. Talk to me about betting overs versus betting unders when it comes to season wins.
Now, it's pretty split. In the NFL, there's been more unders than overs the last couple of years. College football, I only know the last year there were a few more unders. I have not gone through and done every college football team. But, I'm not concerned about what other people gave out. When I was doing the Gold Sheet Top 25s, I was very involved with the power ratings and where we rank these teams. So when I'm looking at my best teams that I have the strongest, they're likely going to be overs. As I start getting into the middle board and the bottom teams, then I'll start finding some more unders. So yes, early in the season when I'm doing these, since I'm doing them from my best team down, I'm finding obviously overs early because these are teams that I have power rated high. Later on, as I progress and finish the rest of the teams, I will clearly have mostly unders versus overs for that reason.
Ralph Michaels joining us, everyone. Ralph, let's turn our attention to your chart. This is a fascinating topic. Teddy and I are going to go into how to bet preseason conceptually part 2 after your segment, so the timing is perfect. Go ahead.
Well, let's remember this. When the NFL changed to 17 games and 3 preseason games, it threw everything that we knew out the window. We had to restart fresh because coaches were so accustomed for decades to have a 4-game preseason schedule, and they all had their routines. Some had different routines. Some liked playing their starters game 3. You had Jeff Fisher who liked playing teams in 4. So everyone had different systems. But when you went to 3 games, we didn't know what to expect. So I pulled all the new head coaches since we went to a 3-game preseason in 2021. Dan, if we can get the first chart. And actually, Dan, the other chart, the one with the blue heading, my apologies, I didn't make that clear. The NFL, okay, so you see on the left-hand side, the new coaches from last year, In the middle is the new coaches 2022, and on 2021, the new coaches are on the bottom. So take a look against the spread. 6-6, 15-17, 10-11 the last 3 years. Take nothing out of that. Over under 6-6, 15-16, 10-11. Take nothing out of that. So what I'm telling you is this: when we're looking at new head coaches, there is no set pattern. If they were good, if they are bad, how they do the first season. But I started tracking this. Teddy and Prez, take a look at this. Is this a 2-year anomaly? We'll see what happens this year. Look on the right-hand side. That's what happens in year 2 of the coaches. Obviously, there's nothing for the top coaches because this is year 2. In year 2, last year and 2 years ago, look at those over-under number, Teddies. For a second-year preseason head coach in this 3-game schedule, they have gone 30 overs, 7 unders, and 2 pushes in year number 2. Is there a reason for that? I'm really not sure. I don't have an answer, but wow, did that pop out to me when I was documenting the information.
So I know that last year, NFL preseason trended heavily to the over. That was a fairly unique situation. The NFL preseason hasn't often trended heavily to the over. So last year, the broader picture had more overs and unders. Nonetheless, that certainly stands out and is worth watching fairly closely here in 2024. And we're seeing a fair bit of over money come in on a handful of these games for week 1 as well. Ralph, if you check out that free WagerTalk Live odds screen, you can watch the lines move in nearly real time. It's free, it's easy, it's fun, and you'll learn stuff from paying attention to that WagerTalk Live odds screen. Valuable tool for bettors. Ralph, talk about what you have going right now at wagertalk.com. Outstanding chart. Do you want to put the other chart up? Sorry, I'm just going to show it real quick.
This is really a chart that I'm showing you. There's nothing there, but for every chart I do, I probably do 4 charts that doesn't have information that's positive. So I always like looking at first games for a new head coach and first home games for a new head coach. And is there something in there? There was a great period there where new coaches always liked winning their first home games. But if you take a look at that chart, this one are the same new head coaches that I showed on the previous, but they're sorted from the worst record to the best record. So when Urban Meyer took over Jacksonville on the top line, he took over a team that was 1-15. So I wanted to show you if the team was a bad team the year before or a good team. Like when Bowles took over Tampa Bay on the very bottom, he actually took over a Tampa Bay team that went 13-4. So while this chart is just giving you information, there's nothing to take away, but don't overreact thinking that a new coach for a new team tries to win game 1 more or tries to win an opening home game. You see both game 1 and their first home game are actually 1 or 2 games under 500 for the last 3 years. So just something to share that you don't have the wrong thought process as you're going through preseason, that the first game for the new head coaches has not been a positive, not truly been a negative, but it's basically a non-factor since the 3-game NFL preseason came into effect.
Ralph, it's promotion time. What do you got going for the clients?
Well, I have an NFL preseason play loaded for today. I have an NFL preseason play loaded for tomorrow. I'll have at least 1 or 2 more plays for this weekend. Let's see. Preseason, 3% and higher, 68-33, 67%. Preseason, 4% and higher, 40-13, 75.5%. Do not buy tonight's play for $25. The entire preseason, just $99. Head to my homepage, wt.buzz/RM.
There we go. Ralph Michaels, everybody. Outstanding work from Ralph. The charts are amazing. What a smart handicapper. Lucky to have him. Teddy covers. Yesterday, we started looking at how to bet the NFL preseason conceptually. I'll do a quick summary. You had 8 points you wanted to discuss. The first was do your homework, find accurate local news sources, and that's a great point, especially the beat writers who are in the dressing rooms and hearing the quotes all the time. The second point we discussed, bet facts, not opinions. The third was look for key numbers in the preseason, and you made a great case for how important -1 and -2 are. Not as important during the regular season, but a lot of teams going for it on instead of kicking at the end of the game. Nobody's playing to tie. We spoke about betting against teams with a cluster of injuries at any position, and the backup QB battles. Very, very important, more so than the starting quarterback battles. Now we continue with laying points. If you are, make sure there's a bet against to go with your bet on. Do you want to delve into that?
Yeah, let's take a look at tonight's NFL card just as a prime example. All right, here's New England and Carolina. Carolina is a clear bet against in this game. They're not starting starters. They got rookie QBs. They got undrafted rookie QBs. They have a new coach in his first game. They don't look organized. There's not a single positive that I can come up with Carolina for tonight's game. We have a bet against. The question is, do we have a bet on for New England? And the quotes from Jared Mayo, for me, not bet on in the slightest. All right. He's like, we want to do fundamentals. We're going to learn how to tackle. I want to make sure we can run the football. This is not I don't have both ends of the equation. So I can't lay the points. It's just that simple. If you want to lay, again, lots of these games are going to be decided by, 1 or 2 points. Good handful. Like we decided by a field goal or less. I would say at least a third of the games this week, next week, the week after will be decided by a field goal or less, maybe more than that. When you get into let's lay points, there has to be both elements of the equation. You can't say, oh, I want to bet on this team. There's got to be a bet against for the other team. If you want to say, I want to bet against this team, there's got to be some bet on for the first team. Not talking about dogs, not talking about the laying 1.5, 2, but when you get to a field goal or more, for me, I need both pieces of the equation. What do you think about that, Lawrence? Is that something you paid attention to?
I'm going to ask you a question about that, Teddy, because it seems completely obvious to me. So my question is, how does that differ from the regular season?
Oh, there's lots of times you'll be like, this is the team I'm betting against. I'm going to bet against them until proven otherwise. Or this is the team I'm betting on. I'm clearly looking to bet on this team. Look, they're an undervalued commodity right now. And their opponent it matters some, but it doesn't matter as much as your opinion on the one team. In the regular season, we talked at the very beginning, bet facts, not opinions. In the regular season, you're going to have opinions about teams that you want to bet, that are reasonable to bet. In the preseason, there are no opinions about any teams other than the facts. This team's playing X, Y, and Z. This team's not playing X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter how good the teams actually are. It matters who they're playing and what they're trying to accomplish in that game. So that, to me, is the huge difference. And that is why you don't need to have the bet against or the bet on in a regular season scenario where the team you're already looking to bet on and bet against and do it until proven otherwise.
Teddy, you mentioned in your points to me teams that blitz overwhelm inexperienced offensive lines. So tell us, how do you find out that information, so to speak? Because
real simple.
You're not
right. Google. Listen, Google's a powerful tool. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But Google is a really powerful tool. You don't have to follow every beat writer on Twitter. You go to Google, you click on Google News. You type in the defensive coordinator's name and the team name of the opponent that they're going to face. Tonight you would type in the Panthers DC, Patriots. See what pops up. Start clicking on some links. And you find quotes from the defensive coordinator talking about what they want to do in this game. Doesn't work. You don't find something for every game, but you find something for some games. And that's what you're looking for. And the fact is, Lawrence, when you have blitzing, blitz is when a coach says, we're going to work on our blitzing schemes this week. That's as strong a bet on quote as you can find. That's better than we care about winning this week.
Well, that leads us right to the next point. And we get to do shows together every day, and one of the things that you really use in your handicapping on a regular basis is quotes coming out of the dressing rooms, that feeling, that energy, that vibe. And it's even more important in preseason, understanding coach speak. Talk to us about that.
And this is one where experience matters. It helps that you've been doing this a long time. There's lots of times coaches say stuff that's aimed for the media that's not necessarily for their players. What you want to do is try to read between the lines of some of the coaches' quotes. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. If you get decent at it, you're going to be right more than you're going to be wrong when it comes to understanding these quotes. And the key is a lot of these quotes are going to be focused on the starters. Starters are going to play. Starters are going to play a series. Starters are going to play a couple of series. Point spread outcomes, unless you're making first half bets or first to score bets or any of that stuff, point spread outcomes are largely determined after halftime. So the coach speak we're looking to identify is what's going to happen in the second half of these games. And again, if you dig, spend some time with it, there's winning information out there. That's how we went 8-2 in the NFL preseason last year, and why we expect to have similar success in the NFL preseason this year.
So, Teddy, I want to go quickly through just a couple of teams and discuss them. Now, these angles, trends are specifically with the same coach, because we spoke about that yesterday, and we don't want to go back too far. NFL preseason is more about the coach than the team at times. So when you look at Doug Peterson's Philadelphia Eagles, 3-13-2 straight up, 4-13-1 in their last 18 preseason games. Pittsburgh, this is a team that have won their last 6 preseason games straight up in ATS. They're 18-4 straight up in their last 22 and 16-6 ATS, and that goes back to 2017. Minnesota, and I love Kevin O'Connell.
Lawrence.
Yes, sir.
Can I cut you here and talk about those two teams first? Because that's important,
yes.
What's going on in the market with those two teams specifically. If you notice, this week, Philadelphia, who's been a terrible point spread team in the preseason under Sirianni does not give a shit about winning games in August. Philadelphia has taken a boatload of money against Baltimore and Harbaugh and the Ravens' insane track record. And that line's bounced back and forth. We've seen, again, money for Philadelphia this morning, where that line was pick 'em, and now it's back up to -1, -1.5 for the Eagles. Ravens open -3. So the market's paying no attention to that trend. Look at the other one you talked about, Pittsburgh and Houston. The Steelers have been a great point spread team under Tomlin.
Yep.
Year in, year out in the preseason. Bet on all the way. What's happened this year? Pittsburgh opened -2, -2.5. Now they're 2.5-point dogs. So the broader markets don't give a shit about these coaching trends. What they care about is what the coach is saying in terms of who's playing and how much. So if you know a coach cares and the betting market is saying, well, the coach caring doesn't matter, it's all about the personnel, maybe there are bets to be made on both of those games. If you're interested.
And Teddy, flat out, I think these trends are very relevant, and more relevant than the talk that comes out of the coach. Actions speak louder than words.
Sure. And Baltimore, had this incredible, of all the preseason success,
21.
They still talk about Mark Levy for the Buffalo Bills as the single worst preseason head coach. He lost every game. You bet against him every year, and all you did go 4-0 against the spread because Levy didn't care a little bit. And Harbaugh's on the other end, where he won, 20, 19 or 20 games in a row,
21 in a row.
Whatever it was. Last year, the Ravens 1-2 straight up, 0-3 ATS in August. The quarterback rotations weren't the same. The defensive depth wasn't the same. This year, so of the two teams after the line moves, I'm more interested in the Pittsburgh side than the Baltimore side. I want no part of the Ravens this preseason. They have this long-term great track record, but this year's team is not those teams when it comes to August football. And we showed last year maybe Harbaugh's desire to win all these preseason games isn't what it once was.
Teddy, we'll just keep this show going because this is such great information. Two more quick teams, Minnesota and the Rams. Kevin O'Connell, I love him. Lost 10 straight preseason games, 2-8 ATS. There's another coach that clearly could care less. But this year is a little different now that they have a quarterback carousel going on. Do you expect that trend to remain, or is this Minnesota team a team you might look to bet on, given that they're trying to find their way through their quarterback situation?
Great question. The answer is I don't know, which means we'll probably pass on Minnesota for week one, because there are certainly some reasons to think they'll be bet on. We have a coach who has not shown any bet on, but he's had a veteran quarterback that whole time. So I don't really know. Unless I see a quote that stands out to me, I'm not going to get involved with the Vikings week one of the preseason. McVay, on the other hand,
the Marv Levy of today. The Marv Levy of today, Teddy. Nobody cares less about the preseason than him.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And we saw that last year as clearly gets, where the Rams were blown out in all three of their preseason games. Money poured against them, and it didn't matter. They lost all three by 17 or more last year. And when we look at the LA Rams this year, when it comes to week one, Dallas has not been a bet on preseason team either. And Dallas is laying 4.5 against the Rams, which tells us that's not a trend that the markets are sleeping on anymore.
Wonderful stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed that segment. Please hit the like button if you can. Steve Merril joining us. Steve, would you like to add anything to our conversation?
No, it's just, I've been doing this since 1996. This will be my 29th football season as a professional sports bettor and handicapper. And it's always about the information. It's just amazing to me how things have changed. Back in 96, Google did not exist yet. We were 3 years away from Google still. But the internet was in its infancy, and I used to dig through the online newspapers. Back then, everything was free. Now you have to have a login or a subscription for the majority of these. But before my time, Ted, you'll remember stories from like Dave Malinsky and Russ Culver and those guys. They would wait in the terminal at McCarran Airport to literally try to get the newspapers off airplanes in the 1980s and 90s. And that was for regular season games even. So it's not about getting the information anymore. Like Teddy said, it's readily available. It takes a couple clicks of the mouse. But nowadays, it's more about what you do with that information, because everyone kind of has the same information very quickly now. There's no secrets anymore.
So the story from the McCarran days was that the guys, it wasn't Malinsky at the airport or Culver at the airport. They had a guy that they would have that worked at the airport that they would get all the newspapers from, which was in 1986 an extraordinarily valuable tool, an unbelievably valuable tool. We can do that now with a couple of clicks and a couple of subscriptions.
But with that said, that information is important, whether you get it by standing at the airport or you get it online now, which is much easier. It's information you guys need to get. Steve, we got to keep the show moving along. We have a huge game in the Olympics today, Serbia against the U.S. Some of our listeners have been talking about that game in the chat. A couple of them think that America is going to slaughter the Serbia team, 20 more points. I'm not with them. I'm curious how you're betting this game.
So the U.S. has been a tricky team to handicap throughout the exhibition and these 4 Olympic games so far. And I thought, motivation's the key. Obviously, they're the most talented team. They're the deepest team. So it all comes down to motivation, as is often the case when laying big numbers in any sport. We talk a lot about that the next few weeks here in college football week ones, not afraid to lay big numbers, more so than I was when I started in the 90s in any sport now. I thought the South Sudan spot was good because they only beat them by 1 in the exhibition. We're getting a 14-point discount, and they still came out kind of flat in that game. But what was interesting about the South Sudan game is that they were up by 19 at the half. They didn't come out flat. They just turned it off and actually got outscored in the second half. Puerto Rico, the next game, they're losing in the second quarter. I was doing the last call live last Saturday at Dana Alexander. We were talking about that game here on the network. They turned it on in the second half. I'm doing free play videos for all these games. And what I mentioned in the Brazil video the other day was I liked the U.S. in the first half. I thought they would come out strong after the sluggish start against Puerto Rico, and that's exactly what they did. My concern now, Prez, is that it might be the opposite. I could see them coming out a little bit complacent today after already beating Serbia by 26 in both the exhibition and game one of the Olympics a week ago. I'd be careful with the U.S. If you're going to play them here, I like the minus 15.5 more for the full game as opposed to the 9.5 first half. It's the exact opposite handicap for me than the Brazil game a couple days ago. But I think the best way to approach this game is to not play it pre-flop, to use a poker term. Look for them to come out sluggish and get a discount in-game. The line right now is 15.5. If you're going to play it, that would be my preference, my lean. I'd rather get the USA maybe minus 11 or 12 in-game if they come out sluggish, which I think they might after easily beating Serbia. And keep in mind also, if France is able to pull out this game, and it's deadlocked 33-all right now as I'm watching the second half against Germany, the French fans are going to be huge Serbian fans, hoping that Serbia can pull the upset and they won't have to play the U.S. So I look for a slow start here. I'd wait and play in-game if you're playing the U.S. As far as the total, it's up to 188.5, 189. I was 187 when I did my video overnight. I would lean under here. 184 and 194 the two games, but three-point shooting was lights out on that 194. It still barely got over this total by the U.S. They had over 56%. And I think we'll see some defensive intensity being an elimination, semifinal game. I think 189 has some value to the under if you're playing this one.
Teddy.
Steve. Yeah, well done, Lawrence. Behind the scenes. Nonetheless, so isn't U.S., should we just bet on them now? I mean, they kind of dilly-dallied around and they sort of woke up. We've seen them wake up. Not that I'm still on my under half a minute of Olympics watching.
I know. I think about that every day as I'm watching 3 hours, Teddy. Every day I think of you as I'm watching 3 hours of the Olympics.
So it's been on when I'm in the room, but I keep my head the other way,
Love it.
But isn't it just time to bet? I mean, like the U.S., they dawdled around a little bit. Isn't now they're okay, let's go for it. Aren't they? We questioned their motivation early. We can't question their motivation anymore, can we? They're getting near medal time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's why I was like, if I'm playing this, I'm laying it. And I would lay the 15.5. But I'm thinking maybe they do come out a little sluggish still since they beat Serbia easy. They beat Brazil easy. So I'm hoping to get a cheaper price in game. And if it doesn't happen, you just pass. But I get what you're saying. And watching, by the way, this Germany-French game, Germany was a 5.5 point. Right now, France is up by 3. So France might pull the upset. They were my dark horse, by the way. Canada and Germany, the two best other teams. But this is a dangerous home court underdog. We saw what they did with Canada with that energy. But with that said, both of these teams, Germany and France, have like one or two key players. And I think the U.S. Can shut them down. In fact, what I would like to see, Teddy, is for them to struggle with Serbia. And then I think they'd be a much stronger play in the gold medal game. Because you're right. When they're focused, they're really strong. Just never know when they're going to be fully focused.
Steve, I'm with you, dude. I'm watching a shit ton of Olympics. And I got to tell you, so I'm assuming you don't have the Canadian feed. So
no, I will say NBC and USA have done a lot better because I don't have Peacock. And going into the Olympics, I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to watch anything because they're going to make me buy it. But they've done a very good job here. But I haven't seen the Canadian feed, which is usually better. It's more free and open from what I've seen in years past.
So what I want to tell you is I watch at least 2 to 3 hours of the American feed in the afternoon and while I work out, etc. And then at the end of the day, I watch 2 or 3 hours of the Canadian feed. And I think it really sums up those countries' culture conceptually. When you watch the American feed, it's all about the American athletes. There are vignettes. I mean, in the pole vault competition last night, which was an epic competition, they showed the Canadian woman. She wins the bronze medal. They showed her once. The Americans are the most xenophobic feed in the Olympics I've ever seen in my life. When you watch the Canadian feed, half the show is about the Chinese ping pong player, the Romanian gymnast. I find it much more worldly, the Canadian feed, but maybe that's because Canada sucks at the Olympics, and they have to find space.
I mean, TV and ratings, how it works. I mean, you want to see your home country athletes, and the U.S. just happens to have a lot more, especially right now with track and field in its prime. So,
but it is fascinating because I love to watch. I mean, the speed climbing on the wall.
I saw that last night.
God, Teddy, that was incredible.
Teddy, I watched more than 30 seconds of that alone. I saw that late last night, Prez. It was on the replay like at 1 a.m. as I'm going to bed. Yeah. That was insane. Totally insane.
Yeah.
Got to watch
Yeah.
that, Teddy. You're missing some good stuff.
Yeah, Teddy.
I'll take the under. I'll watch football this weekend, okay? In fact, I might watch something that I might be able to make some money on and help my clients make some money on. You guys spend 6 hours a day watching Olympics. Knock yourself
Prez,
out.
I know we got to get to the
bugger off,
baseball.
Pannie.
But real quick, 20 seconds. I've been, honestly, Teddy, I have been thinking about this every day because I don't know why I like the Olympics so much. And it's because I like sports. I like games that matter. And Prez, you and I are kind of the same way. We watch less of the other sports than we used to back in the day, whereas Teddy still watches it. You know, he's betting it. And I think that's why I enjoy the Olympics. Like, I don't have bets on these games, but I enjoy the competition. It's kind of like taking me back to my youth.
And I love seeing
there's
like the canoe cross. Did you see the canoe cross?
I didn't see that one. Yesterday was the first day I missed a lot of the live stuff. I felt
that
empty.
was wild. We got to get going, man. We got Kyle waiting in the wings. Tigers and Mariners. No follow-up from Teddy. Take us away.
So I'm going to look at this game real quick here. Mariners and Tigers, a free play for tonight on Thursday. Now, as of we checked the WagerTalk live odds screen, you'll see the Tigers still have not officially listed a starter, but it's going to be a bullpen for them. Their aces have gone recently. They're off back-to-back straight-up dog wins over Seattle, and despite whoever their starter is, and even though with Brian Wu on the mound, Wu's been solid this year, Mariners look like they're slumping. So be careful. Don't just assume that Seattle can't get swept here and lay the $2. I think this will be a tight game again. Tigers plus 1.5, minus 120 run line would be my preferred side. But I think the best play in this game is the under 7 at plus money. T-Mobile Park remains a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. Seattle's been a much lower scoring team at home now for several seasons. And their offense looks like they're starting to go in a bit of a slump. I talked about those 3 straight losses. Back-to-back losses to Detroit here. They've only put up 2 runs each time. They've now scored 2 runs or less in 4 of their last 6 games. Tigers haven't exactly been a strong offensive team this year either. They've put up 2 runs or less now in, I believe, 5 of their last 9 games. So under 7 makes some sense. We might even get a 7.5 by tonight here in the Seattle-Detroit game. So take a look at the under on Thursday night. And don't forget, if you're liking these free plays and these videos and shows, click subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts and thumbs up. And comment below because I read all the comments and I reply back. And right now, you can still get the rest of August for free on my page at WagerTalk.com when you buy September, October. It's buy 2 months, get the rest of August for free. Hey, look, you've missed 7 days. There's still 24 more days to go. I've got a strong baseball best bet tonight. Preseason starts this week. College and pro football around the corner. Rest of baseball through the World Series in October. Great time to get 2 months and basically get 3 for the price of 2. The rest of August free right now. No promo code needed. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Wonderful stuff. Kyle's in the background. Kyle, don't you worry. We'll run the show late. Everybody wants to hear your UFC picks. Teddy covers his big game breakdown coming up.
Big game breakdown. Let's talk MLB for Thursday night. And this is a fun series. NLCS rematch. I'm quite sure the Phillies remember losing Game 6 and Game 7 at home to miss the World Series last year to this Arizona team. They've already played once this season, but not here in Arizona. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. D-backs short favorites, minus 115, minus 120. Total 9.5. A little bit of juice to the over at most books at this stage, and I wouldn't argue with that assessment one iota. The Phillies, 7-2 to the over in their last 9 ball games. They scored 18 runs in 3 games at LA. That's not a high-scoring ballpark. They scored 6-5 the last 2 in Seattle and other pitchers' park. This is a lineup that's hitting right now. They're facing Jordan Montgomery, who has rough numbers at home. I mean, really rough. 368 batting average against, 8.39 ERA, allowing more than 2 base runners per innings. And we look at his last, recent home starts, lit up by the Nats, lit up by the Twins. 6.2 innings in those games, 14 runs allowed. Lasted only 2 innings, 6 runs at home against the Giants. Lasted only 3 innings, 6 runs against the Dodgers. Jordan Montgomery is 156 starts since 2017. He never won more than 10 games in a season. Last year, he had a career high in innings before his 6 postseason starts. Montgomery's not bet on. The D-backs bullpen behind him threw 6 innings, 8 relievers pitched in the doubleheader yesterday. Not fresh tonight. There's ample reason to think that Philadelphia will get theirs. Arizona's lineup's on fire. What have they scored? 6, 8, 4, 9, 5, 9, 17, 5, 9, 2, 6, 7, 7, 5, their last 14 games. That's 5 or more 12 times in that last 14 game span. They're 9-2 to the over last 11. Colby Allard, 2 starts so far since coming off the IL. He's lasted 4 innings, 60 to 70 pitches each time. It's a guy who had nerve inflammation in his left shoulder. He got shut down last year. 39 career starts since 2000 ERA. Since 39 career starts in 2018. An ERA over 6. He's no ace in the making. Look for runs in bunches in the desert, Arizona and Philadelphia to get up and over 9.5. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
What a show Teddy covers. Tons of information and still Kyle Anthony to come. Kyle, welcome to the show. Sorry we're running so late. I know you've got 3 women waiting for you. We'll be quick.
Appreciate that. I really appreciate that. By the way, I finally caught some Olympics. By the way, I did catch some Olympics. Women's volleyball.
The best. The best.
Beach volleyball. The best.
Brandy
The best.
from Canada. Mwah.
Incredible.
We need a moment. We need a moment. Old man being a pervert.
It's a good mix of talent and the outfit. It's a great mix. Great sport.
That outfit. There's nothing better than when the swimmers wear more than the volleyball players. Oh, Kyle, Brandy from Canada. Am I right?
I think, that was what I was watching. That was one of them.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of females, Chelsea Handler, all of a sudden, a fighter in the UFC. She's fighting Yana Santos. Is she going to comedy her to death? How do we bet this fight?
All right, so we have Yana Santos here. She's minus 140 on the comeback here. You've got Chelsea Chandler. She is around the plus 125 mark. Now, when this line opened up, it was about a pick'em price tag, and you do see money coming in on Santos here. And, I get it. When you take a look at, some of the past performances of Chandler, she can be sloppy even when she's winning. She can be kind of sloppy and not very technical. And you've got Yana on the other side here who, really is technical, much more well-rounded. And the big advantage for her is really going to be her volume. She's really going to go out there, push that high volume, really get in the opponent's face, and really be able to utilize that. Now, the big advantage for Chelsea on this side is she is massive for the division. She is very big. She's able to bully opponents. She's able to move forward, really kind of just muscle them around. And one of the big parts, too, is not only that she may lack what she lacks in technical skills, she really, makes up for it in the size, and she'll move forward, she'll pressure forward, she'll look to cut the distance and just swing. And that, for me, really can open up opportunities for her, because in WMMA and women's MMA, sometimes winning rounds is just pressure, is just aggression. And that can work for her in this spot here where you've got Chandler. I think her path to victory is really going to be holding Yana up against the fence, wrestling, positionally winning. I don't think it's going to be this sexy win. I think it's going to be kind of her pushing up against the fence, holding her there. And that really can work out well for her, because the one thing that you do see is that over, for Yana, her last fight or 2 fights ago against Holly Holm is a aged out kickboxer who's starting to wrestle and still was 4 for 6 on takedowns on Yana. And I think that's really where you can see Chandler find success on takedowns, gain control. I think once she gets her down, she can bank that round as well too. Chandler is 3 for 5 on takedowns over her last 2 fights. So it is a path that she's going to look to utilize. And I just don't think Yana's going to be able to work in space and find success. So I do like Chelsea Chandler here at that plus number. I think it's a good spot for her.
Chelsea Chandler, a live underdog, UFC APEX right here in Las Vegas on Saturday night. Let's take a look at a fight on the undercard. And I'll be honest, I don't know if we're talking about men or women right here. Karol with a K, Rosa versus Pannie, Kianzad. You're looking at Rosa as what, about a $2, $2.20 favorite. Talk to me about how you want to bet this fight.
Yeah, so here, this is another spot where, this line was hanging around, minus 150 for Rosa here, and you are seeing the money has come in. She's over a 2-1 favorite here, and, I really believe the reason is due to she's got multiple paths here. She can use the striking, she can wrestle, she can move forward, and that's something that, having multiple paths is definitely going to help. It's indicated in the line, and you got Pannie, who really is just a one-dimensional boxer. She'll throw some low kicks once in a while. She's not really going to mix it up too much. And that really is, at this point in MMA, it's not really the greatest, where you're really just looking to strike. And I do think that, you have Karol, who can go out there, get some takedowns, get some control time, and move forward. And that's another spot here where I do think you're going to see some cage pushing up against the fence, working in some takedowns. And yes, Pannie will have the striking, but she may not even be able to utilize some of that. And now the other part here is that, yes, Pannie may be technically better on the feet, but the thing that I do like that Karol has shown in the past is her volume. Her volume can be really sensational. 3 out of her first 4 fights in UFC, she was just a volume machine. She landed 171 significant strikes, 120, 125 out of the first 3 fights, and then she just kind of dropped off. She just wasn't letting her hands go, wasn't really letting the opponent dictate the pace, wasn't just doing enough. And now we're starting to see the last fight against Irene Aldana. She landed 204 significant strikes. And I think if she really mixes up the wrestling, mixing in with this high volume, I don't think it gives too many outs here for Pannie to really work her striking. Even if she is technically better, I think that she's able to go out there and really dictate the pace. And that really leads me to my play here, where you're looking at it, for Karol Rosa, 9 UFC fights, all of them have went to the decision. She's 6-3 over that span. So getting off the big -205 number, you're looking roughly around the -135, -140 for her to win by decision. So I do like Rosa here in that spot to win by decision.
Kyle frickin' Anthony, everybody. He's won 19 of his last 24 UFC events, plus 70 units this year in MMA, as good as it gets in the sport. Kyle, what do you have going with a fight card this weekend?
So I have a 4% best bet play up. We are 14-5 on those this year. And I have another spot here. This card, I may have a little bit less exposure, because I would tell you, in the next few cards, I really do like. And here, one thing I do is I definitely don't force bets, even just for action. So I may have a smaller slate, but still, even these low-level cards, to your point, Prez, I mean, there's not many, there's maybe 7, pay-per-view events, and we're cashing these low-level cards. It does not have to be these high-level cards. There's always opportunity to put our money in strong positions, as well as the following week, UFC 305. I already have a 5% play up right now, 9-0 on those. So feeling good, and we're going to keep it rolling.
Kyle, while you were talking, I actually asked Dan to find a picture of Brandy to put it up. And I said to Dan, look for a picture from her behind. I really want to talk about her ankles. And I wanted to show the back of her ankles. So Dan searched all over the internet and got back to me and said, I've run out of time. I got caught up looking at those pictures. So no pictures of Brandy, but they are on Google. Check out her ankles.
It's worth a look.
Kyle,
it's worth a peek. Yeah. It's worth a peek.
Best ankles ever. Kyle Anthony, we love you, bro. Teddy, take us home.
Yeah, enough with the middle-aged men or old men looking at athletes' ankles. That's not. That's all you, Lawrence. Knock yourself out. That's going to wrap it for today's show for sure. We'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your bets. Cheers.